You're listening to Revenge of the Drive-In from the Grandma Sophia's Podcast Network. This is the podcast where we watch and discuss two movies randomly selected from a list of over 1,700 and discuss with the intention of determining whether or not this makes for a good drive-in double feature. We're interested in horror films, exploitation movies, and other similar genres. We do go into the plots in detail, so if you're concerned about spoilers, we encourage you to check out these movies before listening. Follow us on Twitter for any updates at Drive-In Podcast. And without much further ado, I'm your host Patrick, and I'm joined by
Jim.
Welcome back, Jim. Last time we didn't have you. It's great to have you back.
Don't lie to me, Patrick, but thank you for saying that.
Anyways, this time we've got Final Destination, not to be confused with The Final Destination, which I think is the fourth movie in the series. Like, why not? And Night of the Living Dead, not to be confused with Night of the Living Dead, the remake, or Return of the Living Dead, which is not a sequel to this movie. So two well-known horror movies, one from George A. Romero, the other from James Wong, not to be confused with James Wan, another well-known horror director. So there's a lot of connections here.
Well, you know the cool thing about Final Destination? I think this is the first time we've had Fate as the antagonist.
I mean, not since the Pardoner's Tale in Chaucer, perhaps. Yeah. Well, I think that's not fate; that's death. But I mean, same idea. Well, I mean, it's death here too.
Yeah. I guess it is death with a capital D.
Yeah. Now you are a big X-Files fan, correct?
Huge X-Files fan.
Somewhat fan. Okay.
I say huge, but I probably haven't seen every episode.
All right. Well, there's an X-Files connection here.
Yeah. Tony Todd.
Oh, I literally didn't know he was I think the people that wrote Final Destination started as like a spec script.
Oh, yes,
for
it did.
An X-Files episode, and then they're like, yeah, let's make this into a movie or something. Which I never saw that series, so I don't have a great idea of what X-Files is, what it feels like. But this has like trashy teen horror movie written all over it. I can't really imagine this as an X-Files episode.
No, I don't think David Duchovny is going to be running around with, what's her name?
David Dakota?
Yeah, that guy.
David Dakota's running around with David Duchovny, of course.
With lots of men. Yeah, I don't think this would have been like a great X-Files story, but it might have been with...
I mean, I'm sure it would have been a little different.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's the way we have it. Yeah, it's a trashy teen horror.
Not as trashy, by the way, as pretty much the rest of the series, which, I mean, that's true for a lot of film series, horror film series, like, I don't know, the original Friday the 13th. Not that trashy. You see part 5, it's like the trashiest movie ever, and that's sort of here, like, I get them all mixed up, because they're all basically the same movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Same exact plot of the Final Destination movies. I mean, there's the Friday the 13th movies, too, technically. I remember I think this is kind of like the inverse of the Star Trek series, because Star Trek, the good ones are the even numbered.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Final Destination, I remember the odd numbers being the good ones. I remember, like, okay, 3 and 5 were my two favorites, and then, like, 1's probably the third best. Having seen it now again, if this is the third best, this is not as good a franchise as I remember it. This movie's okay.
Yeah.
But it's not as fun as I remembered it, and I saw it for the first time not that long ago, like a couple years, so, I don't know. I think I would have loved this when I was a teen, though.
Yeah, I mean, I saw this when I was, if this came out in 2000, I had moved to Kingston by that time, so I was probably like 12, 13, and I think I saw it with a friend of mine.
But 12 or 13, you were born in the 80s?
What? No, in 2006. My friend and I, we had biked over to Blockbuster, and we rented this one and Final Destination 2. And we watched both those, and then when the third and fourth ones came out, I think I saw those in theaters.
Okay.
I remember liking them a lot. Now I'm on board with you, Patrick. My fondness has kind of shrunk away from it, I think.
Well, let's get started, I guess.
So we kind of open on this silly montage of all these different images of death, and I was originally going to skip this, but I kind of wanted to know what you thought about this this opening credit scene?
I just saw this movie and I don't even remember this. I'm not even lying. Like,
Though they have all these dumb references
it's like
to
medieval illustration.
Yeah,
Oh no, is it like stuff from movies? I don't remember.
Well, there's medieval illustrations, and then
Okay.
at one point you see the book fall over, Death of a Salesman.
Oh, I do remember the death of a salesman now that you point that out. I forgot that was in a montage. I thought that was just in the main character's room for some reason.
I think it is. I think it is. And then
Okay.
because that opening montage is him packing to go on the school trip.
And visually, we are told that he's a salesman.
So almost right off the bat, other than that silly opening, we're introduced to the main character. His name's Alex, and he's getting ready for his...
No, you got to give his full name because this is one of those stupid horror movies that does the thing where every name is a reference to other horror movies.
Yeah, give us the list.
We haven't seen that 4,000 times. And Friday the 13th Part 6, Night of the Creeps, etc. I mean, those are just the 1986 ones that did this. You have Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, which did it in 1987. There's so many of them, and they're all obnoxious.
Yeah, what are all the names again for this movie? There's, you said there's Valerie Luton.
Yeah, Valerie Luton, which is weird because the person they're referencing is literally Val Luton. So, like, they're not even trying there. We've got a Browning or two, and that's Todd Browning, the director of Dracula, which we featured on this podcast, and Freaks. Clear Rivers, I think, is, at least to my knowledge, the only one that doesn't have like a point of reference, which it's also the dumbest name somehow. because it's Clear, not Claire.
Yeah.
You'd think it's Claire. Claire is a normal name.
I thought it was Claire for the longest time.
The way Devon Sawa pronounces it, it really does sound like Claire.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's a lot dumber. And then, I don't know, there's the first one, because I think it was the first name they said out loud. It's like someone, they're gathering at the airport and someone's like, Hitchcock, is Hitchcock
Oh,
here?
that's
I'm like,
right.
Oh, fuck you. Because it's like the most obvious one, right?
Yeah.
It's not like Hitchcock is like the least common name ever or something, but it's like, in a movie, if you have a character named Hitchcock, like, we know what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
Come on.
Also, was the Hitchcock character the guy who played Stifler in American Pie?
Yeah, Sean William Scott.
That's so sad.
Star of Road Trip and American Pie and Goon, to give
Goon,
him credit for something that he's actually good in, you know.
I love Goon.
I had the biggest problem with him in this movie. First of all, this is the same year as Road Trip, so big year for him. But is he playing someone special?
That's what I thought.
Or is that just his acting?
I think it's just his act. Well, at first I thought he was playing like a douchey guy because he shows up to the airport.
Well, because he's him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's
him.
Sean William Scott, so that's what you assume.
Yeah, and then as the movie goes on, you're like, oh, maybe he's just kind of stupid, but a nice guy. And then by the end of his time in the movie, you're like, oh, the guy's kind of a dick, actually. And he is really stupid.
Well, I mean, he's not as certainly not. I mean, he shows up in the Rangers like late '90s, early 2000s uniform with the Statue of Liberty logo, which is such like a. I actually I like that logo on like a hat, but like as like a jersey, it's atrocious. Like, what were they thinking? That was, like, so of that time.
Ugly.
It was around the time in the NBA, they had, like, giant logos on everyone's jerseys, like the Houston Rockets, and they had their, like, pinstripe thing. Like, I remember that uniform from when they drafted Yao. The only one I actually do like from that era was the Toronto Raptors with the big raptor on the front, just because that's a fun symbol. And I like raptors, okay?
Let's get back to Alex. He's getting ready for his class trip to Paris. From his little opening scene, we can see that he's pretty superstitious. He wants to keep an old luggage tag on his bag because that plane didn't crash, and it's all for good luck.
Which that's how, existing luggage works. Like luggage that has been previously used, but sure.
Yeah. So he makes his way to the airport, and we're introduced to the rest of the major characters. We have Alex's best friend, as we've already pointed out, Todd. The teacher named Miss Luton. This douchey guy who, I forget his name now. I just said it to you before we started recording. But this douchey guy has a girlfriend named Terry, and then we have Stifler. And then...
yeah, let's just call him Stifler.
Yeah, Stifler. And then we also have strange hippie...
I mean, he's Sean William Scott. He's Stifler.
But then we also have strange hippie girl, Clear River.
Rivers, yes. Played by
Forgot
Ali
that dumb part.
Larder. We got to point out, too, that this is a very, very post-Scream horror movie. And I don't mean that in the sense that, like, it's referencing a bunch of horror movies. Because, I mean, with the character names and stuff. But, like, first of all, look up the poster for Scream. Look up the poster for this movie. Look up the poster for I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's the same exact poster.
Yeah.
It's people arranged, people's faces arranged where they're looking at the camera with like someone in the middle, and it's obnoxious, and that's, I guess that's just the Scream influence. But also like what Scream did for like how you cast these movies too was like, I don't want to say like completely new, but it was like, I don't know, you get these like young actors who appear to have like bright futures ahead of them, but have already kind of been significant usually, maybe not always. So like Scream, you got Matthew Lillard, you got Jamie Kennedy, future star of Son of Mask. Well, I mean, Nev Campbell and Drew Barrymore. Like, big cast. Rose McGowan. And then this movie, I mean, you get Stifler, and that's, well, Ali Larter was, like, kind of a big deal, sort of, like, a little bit. I think Devon Sawa, no one heard of him for 15 years, and then he popped up in The Fanatic with John Travolta a few years ago.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing with this cast, but
I feel the influence. They got people that looked like they belong in Scream.
yes.
Like, even just the hairstyles. Maybe this is just the early 2000s, too, because if you watch this movie, maybe the second movie, too, because that's 2003, I had forgotten how awful fashion and, like, hairstyle was in the early 2000s because I was, like, too young to realize it was terrible. And I guess that's how everyone is, you know, in their youth. People who grow up in the 80s don't realize how terrible 80s fashion is until, you know, maybe you're 1994 and you look back and like, whoa. But yeah. Final Destination, there's some awful, awful clothing here.
This is like the era of, I don't even know how to describe it other than those 2000s kids movies, you know? Like where everybody's a teenager.
2000s kids movie makes it sound like
sorry.
Like Daddy
I meant like
Daycare or something.
You know how you had like boner comedy / normal comedy taking place in high school in the 80s in America?
The American Pie. And that kind of...
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Like,
I don't know if American Pie was the first of those, but it had its own imitators. Road Trip is, you know, very much American Pie-inspired property, I guess. They should have had Tom Green in this movie.
No.
What do you think of Tom Green as the coroner? Does that work?
No.
I would say Tom Green as the teacher that ends up dying on the plane.
Yeah, that would have been funny.
The teacher that knows French.
Okay. At the airport, as all the students are kind of relaxing, waiting to get on their flight, weird things start happening to Alex. The time his flight is leaving is also his birthday, 9/25. The arrivals...
Which, is that like a superstition?
I have no clue.
People...
I think it's just
I've
like
never
a weird
heard of
coincidence, maybe.
I've never heard of like, oh, this time is the date of my birthday.
Yeah.
Because I was born on December 38th, and it's now 12:38 p.m. or something. Like, what?
I know.
It's not a thing.
Oh no, my flight is at 8:11. It's gonna crash. Stupid. But so that happens.
You mean 9? Why 8/11?
Because August 11th.
Why? But you set it up for like a 9/11 joke and then just whiffed by a month.
Well, you know, but well, I'm thinking about birthdays, not when, you know, there's this mass tragedy in New York. So anyways, the weird time thing, the arrivals departures board is flipping out, and my personal favorite part is when him and his buddy, Alex and his buddy, are taking a shit. John Denver comes on the radio or whatever it is.
Yes, which they're really hammering the John Denver.
They got the rights to one song, and they
no. I mean,
drove it into the ground.
it's one song, but the thing is, John Denver died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, they could have sprinkled in get some Otis Redding in here, Stevie Ray Vaughan was Helicopter, I think. Leonard Skinner.
Buddy Holly,
Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, obviously. Richie Valens. Yeah, there's a lot of plane crash guys. Why did they go so hard on John Denver? That's a good question.
Yeah, a little too hard, because again, it's the exact same song every time John Denver comes on. As Alex is getting onto the plane, he sees even more kind of strange things. Like the fuselage is all scraped up, sits down in his seat, and the wing flaps look mangled and like fucked up. And he gets out of his seat so that these two girls can sit together. And in his new seat by his friend Todd, his tray is broken. So despite all of these warning signs for Alex,
is that why the plane crashes? By the way, because they didn't have a way to fasten that into an upright position.
I think so.
Because that takeoff, you need those up. We all know that.
I know. They should play the opening to this movie before every flight.
I've heard of people like watching this movie on planes and stuff, just like like freaking out the person next to them. Probably that'd be fun.
But you know, as you said, Patrick, the plane crashes in this terrible, awful fireball where Alex gets incinerated. We immediately cut to Alex waking up in his seat before he's moved. So even though it appears to have been like a dream or something, it quickly turns into a premonition because all the events that Alex had dreamed of begin happening. So he has a bit of a meltdown and screams, that the plane is going to explode, which, by the way, this is pre-9/11.
Pre-9/11, yeah. This is, I thought it was just a free-for-all with airport security back then. I don't know.
I know, yeah.
Well, you
plane's
could
going to explode, sit down and shut up.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah. Miss those
and
days,
everyone's like, this is not funny, what's wrong? Yeah, this movie would have played even better like a year and a half later, probably. I mean, it doesn't play that well to begin with because it's not that great. But
well, Alex gets escorted off the plane, and a bunch of other students also get kicked off the plane for just kind of being
there were
in
some
the general
people
vicinity.
fighting him. Stifler was just in the bathroom, so he kind of just got caught in the
in the Exodus.
But Clear Rivers is the one that makes the decision. She's like, okay, I will leave. Because she's like this thing you said, kind of like hippie, kind of gypsy.
Spiritual.
The phantasm grandmother kind of person.
Yeah, so I think, how many of them are there? There's like 7 of them that are now off of the plane.
Well, the 2 teachers, one of them the French teacher, Tom Green, gets back on the plane.
And unluckily for Tom Green, the plane does in fact explode. So
we got to talk about something here.
Okay,
this entire setup of the movie is basically the Twilight Zone episode 22, which I don't know if people have talked about this being an inspiration. It's like so fairly obvious. I feel like whoever wrote it was like had to be aware of this, and I feel like they're not really trying to hide anything. I'm just saying, like, I don't see people talking about this, but in 22 is an episode where this like Marilyn Monroe knockoff woman like wakes up in a hospital and like she keeps having the same dream over and over again where she's going down to the basement to like room 22, which is actually the morgue or something, and she freaks out, but eventually she's released from the hospital and she goes to a plane, but the flight is flight 22, so she freaks out and doesn't get on it. The plane then goes up and it explodes, and it's like almost the exact same shot as like seeing from ground level in the airport, like when the plane explodes. It's very remarkably similar.
James Wong. Hack.
No, I mean, I love James Wan. James Wong, on the other hand, I don't know.
Well, the plane crashes, and because of Alex's outburst, the FBI are called in to question him and the others that got off the plane.
My favorite character, Shrek.
Yeah.
Now, this requires some context. The lead actor in Nosferatu, the guy playing Count Orlok, the actor's name was Max Schreck. Hence, we're given this guy's name Shrek. I don't remember the other FBI guy's name. I don't know. But, I mean, Shrek is Daniel Roebuck. But this is just unfortunate timing, because this is a year before the movie Shrek came out and ruined that name for both people who have it in real life forever, Even though it is his last name here, not his first name, it's spelled differently, you're still calling a character Shrek, and it's just kind of like, it's just poorly aged things, I don't know.
You wonder if he has as many layers as onions,
I wonder if the script does.
The answer is no. So after everybody's allowed to go home, we cut to 39 days later. 39 days after the crash, the high school that they all attended holds this memorial ceremony.
Which the high school's got to be like Corman High or something, right? It probably has a name like that.
Mount Abraham.
Damn it! I thought for sure it would be a reference the way all the characters' names are, like Craven High or something. I don't know.
The next Lemony Snicket series of unfortunate events that leads to somebody's death is Todd. So it's pretty much right after this memorial service. He's hanging out in the bathroom in his house, and water begins to leak from the toilet, and it slowly snakes its way to his feet in front of the sink.
Well, it's like a supernatural water, though. It's like its own blue kind of. There's a blue thing going on here.
Yeah.
Something. I don't feel like the series kept with this like blue thing signifying death approaching. I don't know. I don't remember it doing that.
Well, I mean, I know that they had like a shadow figure kind of like move in the background, and that's what triggered everything, because he cuts himself shaving and stuff. But you're right. This water
there's like a blue the thing on the ground. Yeah. And
yeah, this water it has a mind of its own. It's being controlled. So when he steps away from the sink, from the vanity, he walks over to the tub, and it causes him to slip. And this is my favorite death, actually. It causes him to slip, and he gets his neck caught around a clothesline hanging in the tub, and he essentially chokes to death. Wait, did you say he gets...
Carradine. David Carradine.
Yeah, I was going to make that joke. God damn it. So yes, Patrick, Todd gets David Carradine in the tub, and then we watch the water kind of recede back into the pipe. So, we know there's like this supernatural thing for sure.
Supernatural shenanigans going on here.
So Todd's dead. Alex rushes over to his house because he gets this, like, the universe gives him a clue.
Yeah, his spidey senses were tingling.
Yeah, and by his spidey senses tingling, he was popping a boner when he pulled out a Penthouse magazine, and then an owl spooked him, and he threw it at a fan, and it cut out the name Todd.
I honestly think the spidey senses makes more sense. Seems more realistic.
Well, the next day, because I think Miss Clear Rivers was at Todd's house as well, hiding behind a tree while police were taking the body out. The next day, Alex goes to see Clear, who's the only other person in this movie who thinks something is going on, and they decide to break into the morgue to check out Todd's body for some reason.
Well, he's always been curious about other men, and this is his first chance to really see
I've always wanted to see Todd's body.
Didn't go to gym class, I guess. I don't know. Listen, we got to get to the Tony Todd scene somehow,
Exactly, yeah.
He's in some of the sequels, he literally just shows up, and there's no reason for him to be there. It's just like, sure, the morgue or the mortician's gonna show up to the funeral to talk to some teens, give exposition. Why not?
Dude, he's such a great part of this movie. And I guess I should say, when they show up to the morgue, they get spooked but educated by Tony Todd, who's just kind of hanging out in the shadows.
He's giving it his all. He really. I mean, like I mentioned earlier with the horror actors' names kind of thing, it's something else that tends to bother me a bit in horror movies is like give a really small role to like this actor that's famous for like a number of horror movies, right? It happens all the time. Jeffrey Combs will pop up, Brad Dourif will pop up, whoever. Linnea Quigley qualifies, although she's in the stuff that's far more trashy than this. And the reason it bothers me a lot of times is that most of these actors are like legitimately very good, and they deserve to have more than what's essentially just a glorified cameo.
Yeah.
And because they're so well known for these horror movies, they get typecast. And it's like, I would like to see Robert Englund act. I don't want to see him play Freddy 45,000 times necessarily. I mean, I do want to see that, but I would like to see him do something a little different too.
Yeah.
So Tony Todd is clearly, because he's Candyman, that's clearly what they're going for, is like, okay, we're giving this movie some horror credibility by casting him. Mm-hmm. And yet he's honestly the best part of the movie, regardless of knowing who he is. His line delivery, and I mean, even his lines themselves are just like so much fun. But he's like, he's playing a creepy coroner, of course, because why not? And he's great. I like the scene a lot.
Yeah, he gives this great delivery. Like, he gives this.
And I had no idea he was an X-Files guy. I did not know that.
I think he was also in Star Trek too. I'd have to double.
Everyone's been in Star Trek.
Yeah,
everyone. I guarantee it. He's probably in Deep Space Nine or something.
He is. Yeah, he plays old
I've never
Jake
seen
Sisko.
Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, and he's also in The
that
Next
makes
Generation.
sense. Okay, that actually makes sense. No, he actually does kind of look like him. Yeah,
he does. Yeah. Tony Todd gives them this spiel, I guess, on death and how the 7 of them that were kicked off the plane cheated death. And again, this is death with a capital D. Death had created this specific set of circumstances for these people to die, but they escaped it. So now Death is creating new scenarios to kill them. At the end of this scene, he like kind of finger guns Alex. He goes, "I'll be seeing you soon," or something like that. And I just love that line and that delivery. He's so creepy, and he just
it's so
well.
Great. I mean, perfect like haunted house performance, kind of like he's spooking you. He's like kind of helping you, but he's also just like there to kind of scare you, just because like it's fun. I guess I don't really know why.
Yeah,
it's great. It really is, and I don't care overall much for the acting in this movie. I mean, again, we already talked about Stifler. We're not 100% sure if he's playing someone who's a little slow or not. So that's somewhat of an indication of his performance, of the quality of his performance. But also Devon Sawa, he sucks. He's so boring. I know there's some Devon Sawa fans out there. I mean, I don't know why, but they're out there. Because he's in Idle Hands, he's in this, and then I don't know what he did until The Fanatic. He's actually kind of good in The Fanatic, to be honest. I mean, Travolta's like embarrassing himself, but he's actually solid. He's just so boring, and he's got just like a bland, boring, like he's good looking, but he's just like boring to look at even. There's like nothing interesting about him.
Yeah.
I do kind of like Ali Larter. Although that might just be because her character's a little bit different.
Yeah, her character's
there's
the most
some personality there, you know?
Other than fucking Tony Todd. But yeah, I agree. And she's like she does like metal work and stuff. She lives in a cool house and has a dog. Sure, I'm on board with her.
Yeah.
Well, after Alex and Clear talk to Tony Todd, actually get scared away by Tony Todd, I should say, they head over to a coffee shop to try to figure out what to do about their situation. And then, by chance, the remaining survivors all kind of show up at the coffee shop, all in different ways.
This is probably the scene that the movie's best remembered for.
Yes, yeah. And Alex, at one point, sees the reflection of a bus in the coffee shop's window, and when he turns around, it's gone. Or it's not even there to begin with. And that's kind of foreshadowing for what's coming next.
Works, yeah.
Fuck off. Well, it's foreshadowing because once everybody shows up at the coffee shop, Alex and the douchey guy begin to argue, and Terry, douchey guy's girlfriend, walks away and says, I'm done with this. And she gets absolutely obliterated by a bus.
Yeah, this has got to be the scene, the moment that this movie's best remembered for. I can imagine seeing this in a theater like opening night. No one's seen this movie before, and the crowd just like erupts at this scene, and because it's not really played, I mean, it's a jump scare, but it is played more for laughs than it is for scares, and this is really the only moment like that. And honestly, this is a better version, I think, of the Samuel L. Jackson Deep Blue Sea death.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in that case, it's right after he has this long dramatic monologue, and then the shark jumps up and bites him to death. In this one, it's a little bit better because it's the same kind of thing. I don't know. I just find it more effective, more enjoyable. Maybe it's just because there's not a terrible looking shark. That's always a plus.
Well, maybe it's
fewer terrible looking sharks. Please.
Maybe it's just because it's a big fucking bus, too. Like, there's something kind of satisfying about seeing somebody get hit by a bus in a movie, like Mean Girls.
But you could say the same about seeing a genetically engineered shark eating someone, though, too. I mean, to be fair.
Yeah, I guess you could, yeah.
I mean, I found very little satisfying about Deep Blue Sea, but I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I don't know.
Well, after this most recent death, it turns out that Alex can predict who is going to die, both by the universe trying to show him what's going to happen, but also he can trace the path of an explosion on the airplane.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't go off of his memory here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it'd be like, oh, no, this is how this person died first in this, like, because it's a plane explosion, like, we see it play out, but in theory, that's, like, a virtually immediate thing,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
So I always kind of get the impression that's just, like, the elongated version for our viewing pleasure. And I will say that's a pleasurable scene. I enjoyed that scene. Yeah, they do the news thing does the path of the explosion, which I'm not sure the news would cover. They would probably just say, oh, it exploded, here's why. We're moving on with our life.
Yeah.
Sorry to sound like Walter White in that Breaking Bad episode where he's like, look, this is only the 57th deadliest plane crash in our nation's history or whatever. But I mean, it's like really, I guess it's a high school class. I don't know.
I guess that's sad.
I mean, no one gave a shit about the high school baseball coach or softball coach or whatever and his kid that died when Kobe Bryant's helicopter went down.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I don't want to say nobody did, but I mean, obviously the discourse is R.I.P. Kobe.
The vast majority of people. Well, Alex can figure out who's going to die next because of the path of the explosion. So it had started at Todd's seat, and it had moved through Terry's seat, and next in line is Miss Luton, who has a pretty elaborate death. She has
this is my favorite scene in the movie.
Well, even the dumbest part about it is like the lead up to it. So like,
that's what makes it so great is that this entire scene is just so many things going wrong in her house that you think will be what kills her, and then she ends up kind of dying by a combination of all of them.
Yeah,
but also kind of not. It's partially maybe like 0.5 of 1%. Devon Sawa's fault, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, not really. Well, maybe a little bit. I don't know.
He just showed up, I guess.
He kind of just showed up.
Yeah. Well,
but there's knives falling off of counters. There's mugs. There's just so much.
Dude, yeah. Well, my favorite part is like she fills a mug up with vodka and it cracks. And
that's right. Yeah, the
vodka
mug,
leaks across the floor from the kitchen, and she holds it above her old desktop computer, and then it starts to smoke. because it's like shorting out, and then she goes to lean over it to check what's wrong, and it explodes, and it slices her throat open, and she starts
and you think,
walking.
oh my god, she's dead, and then that's the start of the death scene.
Yeah, so she starts walking to the kitchen, but then the trail of vodka catches on fire and follows her to the kitchen. Where she kind of like collapses on the ground, I think, and now like half of her kitchen's on fire, and she's trying to reach a rag on the counter to stop the bleeding.
This is the best part.
And she pulls over a whole thing of kitchen knives, and they all miss her except for one, which gets her right in the chest.
Square on her chest, just like a perfect shot. I love it.
And then Alex comes running in because he was let go by the FBI, which is not important at all. And he goes, oh my god, I'm going to help you. But as soon as he shows up, the trail of fire that was leading into the kitchen causes the oven to explode, knocking over a chair at the kitchen table, which lands squarely on the knife handle and pushes it deeper into her chest.
Did we even need that? Like, she's dead. There's no way she's surviving this.
She has a slit throat. She's we
don't need the knife to go 1 inch further into her body or 1 centimeter further. Like, she's dead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was great.
I'm sorry, Val Lewton, producer of Cat People, and I Walked with a Zombie.
Well, Alex leaves the house after he touches the knife, getting his fingerprints all over it, and he dives out the front door just as the house
we
explodes.
forgot to mention this. The reason she's drinking the vodka is she's taken it the hardest that she's survived because because like survivor's guilt is hitting her, which could really be interesting, but we spend about 10 seconds on it and only with her. But I think she's probably most guilty about it because she was the one that literally made the decision and said, Tom Green, you go back on the plane.
Yeah.
You know
the French thing.
So, I mean, that part makes sense, but, like, I don't know, it's an idea that could have been interesting. One of the sequels probably looks into it, but also might not, because those sequels get really trashy, and some of them don't give a shit at all about characters, so maybe they do ignore that kind of thing.
Wait, which sequel was the one where that girl got her head chopped off by the elevator? Do you remember?
I do not remember that. There's so many scenes like that. I'm trying to think. The third one is I think the third one's the big roller coaster one, which that scene is so stupid.
Yeah. And the third one's the one that opens with...
That's the tanning bed death.
Yeah.
That's the...
Yeah.
I can't remember what else is in there.
Is the third one the one that opens with the racetrack, and the second one's the big...
No, third one's roller coaster. Second one is logs falling off of a truck.
Yeah.
Fourth or fifth must be racetrack. I can't remember which. The fifth one is like the Golden Gate Bridge collapsing or whatever, and that's what it is. The fifth one also has LASIK surgery go horribly wrong and murder someone.
Yeah,
it's great.
How many are there? Are there only 5? Because I
think there's 5. I'm actually shocked this hasn't been like remade or rebooted yet. I mean, we're already rebooting Saw.
There's a new one coming out in 2022.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Well, fuck.
But I know the fifth one is like a prequel.
Well, you just spoiled it because that's not revealed until the end of the movie. I remember that. Which doesn't make any sense because I want to say they're using like iPhones and stuff the entire time. And then at the end of the movie, it's revealed that it's 2000. Like, what? I could be mistaken about that, but I want to say that's definitely not... We've seen how awful 2000 fashion is. This is... In Final Destination 5 is not that.
Yeah, there's no like frosted tips or anything in there. Yes, so Alex leaves her house just as it explodes, and he sees Stifler outside. He's like, hey, Alex, how's it going? And the house explodes.
Who among us doesn't go for late-night bike rides?
I know, yeah.
What's he doing there?
Just taking in the sights. Alex goes on a lam. He goes into hiding because I think Stifler says in a later scene, the fire caramelized the blood, which like imprinted your footprint in the house next to Miss Lewton. So Stifler, the douchey guy, and Clear go to find Alex to try to figure out what to do, how to get out of this whole death situation. And in the process of this, the douchey guy, he's going to die next, and he's just kind of driving erratically, and then he gets stuck on a train track because his car won't start.
Yeah, he goes. Well, first off, he goes full Soul Taker and just needlessly drives like 90.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, we might as well, if I'm going to die next, I might as well die like this. I'm like, okay. Well, technically, they never confirmed that he would be the one that died next, which is kind of the twist of the scene, I guess.
Well, Alex saves him. He pulls him out of the car just in time, and this train demolishes the car.
Yeah.
And as Stifler's complaining about the whole situation and the douchey guy, a piece of metal from the car was under the train, and he gets kicked up and decapitates him.
This is a less effective version of the bus scene. It's like you're supposed to think everything's okay, and then it happens. Except this one doesn't work well enough because he's like yelling at him for like a long time. It goes on for way too long.
Yeah,
if he
and
said
standing
like one
right
thing,
next to the train.
yeah, exactly. You've had so much time to say like, why isn't he going further away from the train? Like it just goes on for so long.
Yeah. After this, Alex realizes that the chain it hasn't been broken, but it's been skipped. So douchey guy was supposed to die, but because he didn't, Stifler got killed. So now Alex realizes that he's next.
Yeah, because the whole thing is the line skips if someone intervenes. They keep using that word, intervene.
Yeah, which I mean, they could also just say, I saved this person, so we skipped. But anyways, yes. So
Well, intervene is like the fate thing, I guess. Why
yeah,
not?
you know, it's a good 3-letter word.
Very Truman Show.
Or 3-point word, I should
So
say.
yeah, 3-letter word. What?
3-point word, damn it! So Alex realizes that he's next, and he goes to Clear's father's cabin to hide out and to live super safely.
This scene's kind of fun.
It is. It's kind of cute, actually.
Because it's like everything's a death trap when he's
Yeah, he's got
hanging
things
out
wrapped
there.
in towels, and he's wearing oven mitts to eat like canned tuna or something. But he realizes, oh, wait a minute, I'm not next because I changed seats. So it's actually Clear that's next.
The first time I saw this movie, I was so frustrated that it took him forever to realize that because they
I know.
hammer the importance of that switching seats in. Well, because you see it twice, because you see it in the vision, and then it's like the first thing that happens when he wakes up too. So it's like you remember that moment. And I don't know. It's just like, come on, Devon Sawa,
I know.
buddy.
Yeah. Think a little harder, buddy. Well, one of my favorite dumb scenes happens here when Alex does realize that Clear's next, and it cuts to Clear's house, and she, out her bedroom window, is this electrified clothesline that's just spinning.
Yeah.
I forget what happens. It's like the power trips out.
Because there's
and
a storm. There's
line
a
gets
lot
cut.
of wind.
Oh, that's it, yeah. A line gets cut and electrocutes a clothesline and spinning all around her house.
I don't like this scene much. First off, it's a terrible climax, I'll put it that way, but it also, the entire something about it too, with the electricity going, this feels so soundstage to me.
Yeah
This feels like the scene in Scream 3 when they're on the film set in the house. That's what this visually, that's what this looks like. You know, it looks like such a soundstage. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, it's also like everything's so over the top. And, you know, you have this out of control...
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it also kind of... it's with with the sparks and stuff. It is very Universal Studios backlot tour kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's exactly how I describe
This
it.
is the #1 attraction at the Dimension Films studio tour a lot. It's everyone's favorite ride. Everyone's second favorite is the one where they go in a plane and it blows up, except nobody ever gets a second ride on that one. So.
Oh.
Not even sure this is Dimension Films. No, I feel bad.
She goes outside to save her dog, who's going to get electrocuted by this crazy clothesline. And in the act of saving her dog, the clothesline flies out of the ground and punctures the pool. And then water goes all over the place, electrocuting the ground.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So she runs inside and hops in her car, but the cable starts bashing on the garage door, and she eventually gets the car out, but it electrocutes the car. And then Alex runs up and goes,
and he
hey,
says you have to stay in the car because your tires are insulators.
yeah, because you're grounded. And she's like, okay. He goes, I'm going to grab the cable, but you have like just a few seconds to get out. And she goes, no, don't, Alex, don't. And he does it, and he gets shot back across the garage.
He's so stupid. Oh, and this is also when Shrek shows up too.
Yeah,
It's when the FBI guys show up and they tell him not to do it.
He's like,
I don't.
"Don't do
Why
it,
are they
kid."
showing up to the house?
Because she had told them the location of her dad's cabin where he was hiding out. Then as he ran out the door,
so they were
chased
following
him.
him.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, and then he goes full Doc Brown in Back to the Future, where he grabs this cord, electrocutes himself, and goes flying.
Well, anyways, it looks like Alex is dead. But he isn't. We next catch up with Alex and friends in Paris. They've made a flight to Paris. The chain has been
They've
broken.
also made friends with this asshole, which is
Yeah.
news to me.
Yeah, so they're all hanging out at this cafe drinking beer.
This is the least Parisian looking. I think Veronica may pull off Paris better than this movie. Like, this doesn't look a thing like Paris or France or anywhere.
Yeah, I know. It's literally a soundstage. You know,
This scene feels so cheap.
Oh, it does.
These last two scenes, I guess, together.
Well, they also do that thing that you do in a movie that's being filmed entirely on a soundstage, where you dart your eyes around a lot and pretend that there's lots of things to see.
Yeah, that's what it is there's like no extras. That's what it is more than anything. There's like nobody around.
Well, just as the movie looks like it's wrapping up, Alex realizes that the chain isn't broken and that he's going to be the next one, and then
because he intervened to save her, so that he's next on the list again.
Yeah. So then Clear sees, she gets a premonition of a bus again in a cafe window. How crazy is that? And she says, "Alex, look out!" And he gets tackled out of the way of the bus from the douchey guy.
Yeah.
Alex goes, "It's not me." And the douchey guy goes, "Who is it?" And that's after this sign has already fallen and is making the backswing, and it just cuts as the sign hits the douchey guy. And that's it. That's Final Destination.
I think my biggest problem with the ending is I didn't see anything in the climactic scene, the Universal Studios soundstage scene, to suggest
What, you mean all the sparks weren't exciting?
No. I mean, I don't think that is an exciting scene, but whatever, regardless. I didn't see anything in that scene to suggest that, like, hey, we can now live, like, comfortably, like, safely.
Yeah.
Like, it's just gonna come, like, I don't understand the reasoning there. Maybe Tony Todd didn't explain things well enough.
Oh, was it maybe that Alex had saved Clear? Because
Alex
she would have had to get
Clear,
out of the car?
but Alex was never saved, was he?
No, but I think after he saved Clear, he was supposed to die, and maybe he did die briefly and then come back to life. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Oh, maybe I don't know. But bottom line is, I feel like it's premature celebration. This is Leon Lett holding out the ball before he crosses the goal line, and someone comes in and Death comes in and swats it away for a safety or whatever, or a defensive touchdown, whichever one. Well, Leon Lett is a defensive player, so it would have been an offensive touchdown. But yeah, I don't know. The movies, the last couple scenes of this movie, not very good. I mean, the ending is like what, I guess this is how you're going to end like the very ending, like the sign swinging at that guy. I guess that's how you're going to end a Final Destination. I'm fine with that. But just the Paris stuff.
Yeah.
The climax is like the least exciting set piece in the movie, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And it really shouldn't be. I mean, you want to avoid that kind of thing.
No,
but you have the teacher getting killed is incredible.
That's the most exciting part.
Well, I mean, the plane crash is great too.
Oh yeah.
We brushed over that just to get through it, but like that is a fun sequence.
Yeah, watching everybody get sucked out and blood splattered all over people is pretty exciting.
And then the other couple of deaths we have are like the fake out, or like, I don't want to say fake out, but like the surprise ones, because they're not the elaborate scenes. It's just like, woman gets hit by a bus. I guess the other one is a somewhat elaborate scene that's pretty exciting. The car stuck on the train tracks, but the death itself is sort of like the bus one.
Yeah.
But no, that's a fun scene too. Like, I just really think the climax is so dumb and just, I don't know. I mean, the movie's dumb.
It is a dumb movie. I think it's a great idea.
I agree. I do think this premise has a lot of potential. This is not, personally, I don't think this is not the best film in the series. This is not the best film with this premise.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a good premise. Great X-Files episode, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, my biggest complaint about the movie was by the end of it, the things leading up to the deaths were just so, like, ridiculous. Like that fucking crazy spinning electrocuted clothesline, It's like...
And the trail of vodka, the vodka fire.
Well, that I liked because it was so ridiculous. Like, that whole scene was just so stupid.
those two scenes are very over the top.
Mm-hmm.
The other stuff really isn't. I mean, I maybe say the plane crash is, but I actually, as over the top as you might say it is, I think that's very effective because that's the first set piece we have, and it's done well, and it's done in a way where you can see what happens to like these different characters and stuff. And it's cool too because it's like it's a plane exploding. In theory, a plane explodes, everyone dies the same way. But no, in this scene we see people get sucked up, we see people get incinerated, we see stuff like flying around and hit people in the heads. Like, there's an incredible variety even within that scene, which is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was like, yeah, I have to watch Final Destination. And they were like, oh, the first one with the plane? And like, that's the scene that I feel like a lot of people remember from the first one, that and the bus.
You kind of remember the Final Destination movies by the opening scene that sets it all up. You got plane exploding. You get logs falling off a truck. You get the roller coaster accident. You get the I was gonna say monster truck, but no, it's like a NASCAR kind of thing. And then you get the Golden Gate Bridge falling. Like, you kind of, because those scenes are so elaborate and so impressive in their own ways. It's like, that's kind of how you remember the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I mean, Final Destination, fine movie. The thing I was surprised was when I was looking it up, it had a budget of about $23 million, and it made $113 million. It was like 112.9.
Well, I mean, it got 4 sequels. I mean, I knew it was successful.
So the next one had about the same budget. I think it was about $24 million. And I think it grossed only about $90 million worldwide, which was the lowest of all the sequels. But the third movie also had a budget of roughly the same. Now, give me a second. I think I wrote it down.
Third one's a classic. Third one also, this was when they started shooting scenes. This might be the only movie that does it, but they shot scenes that never were going to make it into the movie just so they could do a Choose Your Own Adventure DVD. And if the scene comes up on your DVD, you're like, okay, should this person live or die? And you say, like, okay, let's see what happens if they live. So you click that, and then they just die in an overly elaborate way later on in the movies. And that's like, that's a great DVD feature. Like, that's just awesome. That's really cool.
But no, that's all I really got to say about Final Destination.
Final Destination's okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it.
No, I definitely remember liking it.
It's probably not the worst in the series. So, 1968, Night of the Living Dead, from director George A. Romero, who I don't believe is referenced in Final Destination. That's kind of shocking.
Mm-hmm.
We got Hitchcock, we got Shrek, we got everybody but Romero, it seems like. There's a Carpenter. I think there's a Carpenter. Someone's Carpenter, I think.
Okay, while you're doing this, I'm going to look up the cast.
Okay. No, my favorite was Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, because they named someone after John Waters, and I'm like, what? John Waters isn't even a horror director. Like, what are you doing? That doesn't even make sense. Anyways, Night of the Living Dead, a classic film, a zombie film, black and white, independent, shot in the Pittsburgh area. Mr. Rogers may or may not have been on set. Probably wasn't. But I wish he was. Did you know that George A. Romero got his start with working with Mr. Rogers?
No, he didn't, really?
Yeah, because they're both from the Pittsburgh area, and Romero, I think like the first camera he ever used, maybe the camera that he's using to shoot this movie was like lent to him from Mr. Rogers or something.
Hey, by the way, are there any famous Terry Cheneys?
How's Cheney spelled? That's weird.
Chaney. What about Todd Wagner? Waggne.
Yes, Wagner. There's a Wagner somewhere. I think he directed. I mean, it's not Todd, but I think a Wagner directed The Wolfman, if I'm not mistaken.
What about Larry Murnau?
F.W. Murnau. Yeah, that one's easy.
There's
Director
Agent
of Faust or whatever. What? Who? What? Yeah. Who's the other agent?
I don't know how to pronounce it. Vine. Weine.
I think that's a producer somewhere. I mean, obviously they're going German. Maybe that's the guy that did Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Murnau did Nosferatu. Murnau worked with Shrek.
There's Dreyer, Dreyer.
Carl Theodore directed.
Okay.
Which, that's so... How are you claiming that guy is a horror director? He made vampires, sure. But he made The Passion of Joan of Arc. That's what he's best known for. Like, come on. I mean, like, Hitchcock is okay because, like, Psycho is that big, even though most of his movies weren't horror movies. Like, Psycho is that famous and that great.
That's it.
Anyways, so Night of the Living Dead, I like to think that Mr. Rogers was a big fan of Night of the Living Dead. I don't know for certain. Even more so, like, because, this is like a horror movie, and this was, this is pretty intense in 1968. This still feels like kind of like a movie that Mr. Rogers could get behind, because it's about the importance of teamwork and working together and being kind to your neighbor, and how whenever they don't do that, everything goes to shit.
It takes a neighborhood, to make it through a situation like that. And these people clearly didn't stick together.
Or a violent armed militia, apparently. But even the bigger thing is, I want to know, because this movie, again, but the black and white kind of hides the gruesomeness, if you will, of this story. Mm-hmm. It is zombies eating people, and we do get a pretty awesome scene of zombies eating flesh, and it's adorable. Because they're just chewing on some ham bone kind of thing. And
it looks like they're all sitting down to eat like KFC at a picnic.
Yeah. And then, but in color, the Romero zombie movies are like insane. I want to know, even more so than knowing that Mr. Rogers enjoyed this movie, I want to know that Mr. Rogers was a big fan of Day of the Dead. The 1985 Romero zombie movie, because that's one of the more violent motion pictures I've seen for sure. So Night of the Living Dead, we open with Barbara and Johnny, brother and sister, heading to the grave of their father to just kind of visit it. It's his birthday or something. Yeah. And when they're in the car, they turn off the radio when they're saying something about like, oh, apologies for like we had something that we had to, I don't know. They turn off the radio, and the radio's clearly talking about something that they should be paying attention to. We don't realize that at the time. When they're at the grave, they start kind of reminiscing. Johnny starts teasing Barbara. We get the famous "They're coming to get you, Barbara" line, and I like that he points to that one guy who's like wandering off in the distance. Look, that's him. He's coming to get you. And then he happens to be a zombie. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I loved it.
It's so great. Yes, the zombie attacks, and Johnny fights it, and Johnny gets knocked out or dies. We find out later he's dead, but maybe someone came and ate his foot later on. We don't know. But he hits his head on a gravestone of some sort. So Barbara gets away. She gets into the car, which she doesn't have the keys for, so thankfully they're parked on a hill, which I didn't notice. You don't notice they're really on a hill until she needs to pull the emergency brake and just kind of drift away, just like Uncle Cracker. Then the zombie, I'm pointing this out because it's important later, zombie picks up a rock and starts trying to get in through the car window that way. He starts banging around. It's important because I feel like most zombies don't use tools, most of them. This is, we have to point out, this is like the first occurrence of this type of zombie, like the zombies that we now know and love. It's basically comes from this movie, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, what would have been the big one before this? Like, I Walked with a Zombie?
Well, zombies before this are basically entirely different creatures or monsters or whatever you want to call them, because I don't know, like, Haitian folklore, as, some white guy from the Midwest. What do I know about Haitian or voodoo or any of that stuff? I know voodoo is spelled differently than you think it is. I do know that. There's a U in there somewhere.
No, there isn't. Is there?
Yeah, so like you get a few zombie movies before this. You get I Walked with Zombie, which was produced by Valerie Luton, the teacher who has a drinking problem and burns her house down. You have White Zombie, which is probably the most famous or well-regarded zombie movie before this, and that's Bela Lugosi. In that movie, which I remember a lot better, I know I've seen I Walked with a Zombie, but I don't remember it that well. White Zombie it's like mind control. Like the zombie is like a slave controlled by a voodoo priest, a Haitian voodoo priest, which is played by this Hungarian dude. And we're just not supposed to ask questions. But that's a pretty good movie. But obviously zombies nowadays first of all, this was more true like 10 years ago, but I think they're kind of still just about the biggest thing in horror.
Yeah, probably. They've probably held that spot for close to 15 years now, maybe at least a decade.
Well, it helps that vampires were snatched by teen romance novels, like the vampire needs, I've never been a big vampire fan, but vampires need some lifting up.
We need more Blade sequels. That's what we need.
Sure, why not? Well, what are the big ones? We've got zombies, we've got vampires, we've got werewolves, which have never really been that big. They're always there.
Never that big.
1981, they were huge because that's the year of An American Werewolf in London and The Howling for some reason, like arguably the two greatest werewolf movies ever.
No, what about
werewolves have all been?
What about
mummies are dead? Mummies are gone. They're never coming back. Tom Cruise killed them.
Though I will say the Brendan Fraser mummy movies loved them. Well, the first one I loved, I will say. One of my favorite movies.
But Tom Cruise has happened since then. So mummies are gone. Creature from the Black Lagoon, kind of back with The Shape of Water, you know.
Yeah. People are into fish.
Yeah. Well, I guess Godzilla is in. Godzilla, Kong, that stuff. Those guys are in. Kaiju, kind of. Pacific Rim Pacific Rim was almost 10 years ago at this point, but that movie was big.
Ghosts are out. People aren't scared by ghosts anymore. Now, I think the other big thing other than zombies is like serial killers.
Well, serial killers have...
But they're not really a monster.
No,
I guess they are.
But we're talking about like things in horror. Like serial killers have I think they've kind of always been in once we started depicting them. Like, once you get your Psycho and Peeping Tom, it feels like they never really leave. Then you get, like, obviously your Halloween, all your Friday the 13th, all of that garbage, which I can say because I love those movies, but they're trash. Absolutely. And then, like, all that stuff. And then, okay, Scream. Serial killers are in. They're fun. I mean, everybody loves a good serial killer.
Would you call Us a serial killer movie, or would you call it like... I
mean, Us is kind of its own... I mean, not every horror movie fits into these things that we're talking about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, where do you put Blair Witch Project? Is that ghost?
Yeah,
is that witch? Is it neither? I mean, you know...
the last...
what about like Freddy? He's like his own thing. Like, he's a crazy killer, but he's also a monster. Kind of its own thing.
The last great run that like Ghosts had would have been those terrible fucking what were they called? Not Poltergeist.
Well, the Paranormal Activity.
Activities, yeah.
You get the Conjuring though too with the Annabelle movies. I think ghosts are more in than you're giving them credit for.
What about?
I mean, they're technically demons in the but they're all the same thing. Ghosts, demons, poltergeists.
Yeah. And what about horror movies that take place on like fucking like technology stuff? Like, what's that terrible one that came out like 3 or 4 years ago, where that fat kid puts his hand in the blender?
Oh, that's a ghost movie. It just happens to be over. Well, I mean, even since then, we had Host, which is the movie that was made by people during the COVID lockdowns, and so they made it over Zoom. And you have Bad Ben 7, or no, not Bad Ben 7, The Haunted Highway, Bad Ben Pandemic, which is an awful movie, but... Anyway, so zombies use tools. It's important later. I mean, important. I mean, I don't know if it's important. We see it later, just so you're not confused, because we're not used to zombies. Zombies usually just walk around and do absolutely nothing, and yet every time they show up, they're a threat to end the world, because I guess this is how fragile the world is. No, I mean, to be fair, like zombies by themselves, to me, anyways, and maybe I'm in the minority. Zombies are boring.
Yeah.
I don't like zombies. I think what makes a good zombie is, and especially because part of what makes them boring too, is every zombie story is basically the same story.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Even if you're presenting it in a completely different, like Shaun of the Dead, comedy. It's the same zombie kind of story as any other zombie kind of thing is. Even when you've got fast zombies in 28 Days Later or World War Z or whatever, it's like the same general plot. But,
it's just like that the stakes are higher.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes World War Z is like more on a global scale, and 28 Days Later we understand it to be on a global scale, but it's told from the ground. I don't like zombies that much, but zombies being what they are do lend stories incredible creative freedom for a bunch of different things, whether you want to do satire or just like satire and allegory really are like the big things. I mean, you're not getting a lot of political allegories out of Nazi zombies, probably. I mean, there's the obvious, but because it's they're Nazis, but sure, it's like, oh, what was it? Wasn't it somebody like the creator of like the Nazi zombies thing in Call of Duty? Wasn't it somebody like was like, oh, the two things that no one will ever be mad about you killing are Nazis and zombies? And isn't that like the amount of thought that went into that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but that's I believe it.
But yeah, anyways, and then so zombies, but you see Dawn of the Dead has some satire to it, Day of the Dead, all that stuff. The Romero zombies, the first 3 Romero zombie movies, incredible movies, all of them, and they're all great, not because the zombies, but the zombies are like the backdrop for these human stories being told, especially this movie.
Yeah, just like The Walking Dead, your favorite TV show, Patrick.
I've never seen an episode.
Don't lie to me.
Check that. I've seen the pilot. I have seen the pilot, and it was good. It was actually very good. I understand the show turns to shit sometime later.
Yeah. Now, see, I agree with you on all your points about zombies and zombie movies. We actually had this conversation probably like a month ago or something, or a similar conversation. But at a certain point, you just kind of run out of material with these conflicts between the survivors, you know, and that's what's happened with The Walking Dead. I never got into
that's
the show.
got to be the, you know, when you're on your 35th season, you know, when you're running Simpsons deep in terms of the amount of episodes you've had. Yeah, you're running. That's why this is perfect as a 96-minute movie or whatever it is. You know, it doesn't overstay its welcome by any means.
Yeah.
And I actually really appreciate the pacing of this movie too, because it's like you jump right in. It's not quite an in medias res opening because these characters don't know what's going on, so it's not like they, you know. But we see what happens, and once Barbara gets into the farmhouse, then we learn more stuff. And I like how the information's doled out. Some of it we see visually, like when Ben. There's this scene when the zombies are coming through the window and that guy Tom is like hacking away at a zombie's finger, and it keeps coming, and then Ben starts shooting it. Nothing really happens. Then he finally shoots it in the head, and then the zombie's gone. It's, you know, it's on the ground out cold. And like, okay. So we learn that stuff visually. A lot of the other stuff we're told via either television or radio, which I think is, you know, maybe it's easy, but it's effectively handled, that kind of exposition delivery stuff, and it makes it feel real.
Yes, yeah.
You know, yeah, so I really appreciate the pacing here. You know, we're not like, this is, I think this is a really good way to do, and I'm sure it's small, somewhat because of the budget, but this is a really good way to tell this kind of story on a very, very small scale.
Yeah, and I think that's the most effective way to tell almost any zombie story.
Probably. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm just thinking of, like, Walking Dead, I've never, World War Z is, like, they went for their, like, Independence Day type scale of that story, and I don't think it's very good. A lot of people like it. I don't think anyone on Earth who's seen both this and World War Z would say World War Z is better, but, you know. All right, so once in the house, Barbara unfortunately kind of becomes useless.
That's an understatement.
Oh, yeah, it is an understatement, because I want to say I read something, or maybe saw an interview from Romero, where he confessed that, like, that was his biggest regret, was just not writing a better female character. I don't know if I imagined that or just heard other people complaining about that, or if Romero did actually say that. But, I mean, that's 100% the case here. Once we meet Ben, who's Dwayne Jones, who's awesome. He's great. He's the best actor in the movie. Once we meet him, she's completely useless. She's in hysterics for half of it. You know, she goes like a good 40 minutes or so without a single line. It's probably not quite that long, but it feels it. Yeah. And it's just unfortunate, you know. I do like the idea of, like, this person that we think is the main character just ends up not really once we meet someone else. It's like, okay, this person's going to be the main character now. But there's something kind of, I think I've talked about this before, but there's something almost like realist about that in a way, because we're kind of predisposed to associate with, like, the first couple of people that we meet on screen, and it's like, okay, we're going to be following these people in the story. Okay, that Johnny dies. Okay, we still got Barbara. That's fine. And then Barbara doesn't die for a long time. It's just she just becomes less important. I mean, because Ben shows up and he, you know, takes the reins, and I kind of like that. I just wish it was written better so that we could. I would have liked Barbara dying earlier, really.
Yeah, she's just kind of like a flower that you watch slowly wither away throughout the whole movie. The only female character that I do, well, actually, I guess I like, what's his name, Tom?
I actually don't mind either of the other two women. I think they're fine. I just think Barbara sucks, unfortunately. And you don't think she's going to suck, too, which is disappointing.
I know, yeah. Yeah, she starts out kind of cool. She kind of goes downhill for me, and I'm sure it was only because of the, I don't know, the budget or whatever, but when she crashes the car when she's going down the hill, like, that is, like, the weakest, slowest crash, and where she kind of, like, glides up against the tree, and
well, they didn't have power steering back then, you know.
And then she kind of hops out. It's like, like, runs to a farmhouse. I actually enjoyed the part of her. No, I really enjoyed the part of her actually running to the farmhouse and kind of sneaking around it and getting in it and finding the body upstairs and stuff.
Oh yeah, that body upstairs. That's a good little jump scare there. The body with like peeled away face. That's pretty freaking gruesome for 68. And it's one of the more disgusting things you'll see in a black and white movie.
But yeah, you're right. She's very underutilized, and she plays the part of scared woman.
Yes, and that's what makes it unfortunate, is that it's a woman. You know, if this were a male character, they wouldn't act this way.
Yeah.
Or to be fair, I think it's perfectly reasonable that one person could witness this and just kind of lose it. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable, but it's just unfortunate that all the other characters are working well within the story and she just isn't.
Well, it's also unfortunate because...
She's as useless as the daughter who's been a zombie the entire time. We didn't realize it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because... old Barb's, she's clearly distraught from seeing her brother get mauled by a zombie, and she could get over that, or she could learn to live with that and learn to live in the situation. But unfortunately, she's got lines that make her seem more like a mental patient. Like at one point,
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, sounds like it's been an issue that she's been struggling with for a while.
Yeah, well, because I'm trying to think, what was the scene? Oh, they were trying to get the fuel for the truck. I mean, spoilers, after it exploded, he's like, we need another way out. Can we get to your car? He's talking to Mr. Cooper. And Barbara says, I've got a car. Johnny's got the keys. Johnny's got the keys.
Well, whenever she talks specifically about Johnny, she's just in that kind of like far off place, Mm-hmm. But yeah, for a while, you really do just think it's Ben and Barbara. And they're hanging out in the house. I mean, they're hanging out. Ben is clearly a lot more with it than Barbara. Barbara's not saying a whole lot. Ben's the one trying to barricade the place, trying to defend himself. And eventually the two of them actually talk, and we learn a bit about how Ben ended up there. The reason Ben came to that house is that there is a gas pump outside, which I don't know if this is like a rural living, like a literal farmhouse would probably have use for this. I don't know how common it was.
Yeah, I would assume like a gas tank where a tractor would fill up or something.
No, yeah, but I mean, I guess you're probably really in the middle of nowhere if you can't get to it.
Yes.
But then, 1968, maybe the house is built in the 40s, who knows, But so he stops there because he sees the gas pump, but he can't get into the gas pump because it's locked. And then this is when Barbara starts talking about like how she ended up here, which of course we already saw. And it's a lot of like, oh, Johnny, and then she's like, no, Johnny's still alive. We need to go get him. We need to go find him. And then, Ben slaps her around a bit.
Yeah, he pulls a real Sean Connery on Barbara.
Yeah, he goes Sean Connery. He goes Ike Turner. He goes Bobby Brown, however you want to describe it. Which that's always bothered me, that Ike Turner is like the reference for like, the person who beats, and in this case it's not his wife, obviously, but like we know so many wife beaters, like historically speaking. Like, why is Ike always the go-to?
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe because he's just got a great
Chris
name.
Brown.
Yeah, Chris Brown.
So Ben manages to get the radio on, and at this point there's like 7, 8, 10 zombies kind of hovering around outside, and he's got the radio on, and they're listening to, again, there's the word zombie isn't used in the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
And
ghouls.
they're a little later on they're referred to as ghouls. And I want to point this out too, because this is a thing when everybody like, okay, I'll give this movie a pass because we never knew zombies to be anything like this before this movie, so I'm not blaming them for not using the word zombies, but everybody knows what a zombie is nowadays. You don't need to act like you're being cool or artsy if you're making a zombie movie, but we're not going to call them zombies. We're going to call them walkers, because that's what The Walking Dead does, right? Well, 28 Days Later, it kind of gets an excuse because they're essentially zombies, but they don't really, they're like running around. Like, okay, that's not really what we know zombies to be, so I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, I was thinking more about World War Z.
Well, yeah, don't they call them Z's or something like that? They do like some stupid thing.
Yeah, is it Z's? Probably. I mean, if you're in Canada,
they refer to someone turning into a zombie as turning Z or going Z or something,
that sounds
which is
so
like the
ridiculous
dumbest sounding thing. But yeah, they're walkers in The Walking Dead, right?
Yeah.
Oh, because we
don't
need
crawlers.
to use the word zombie. But like The Walking Dead, it should. I mean, I haven't seen it, but it should exist if it's supposed to be relatable to us. It should exist in a world where we know what a zombie is. So if something turns up in the real world and it strongly resembles something from Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, we would call it a zombie. We wouldn't call it something stupid, is my point. So the radio's talking about, at first the radio doesn't even talk about these things as being dead. They're talking about like an epidemic of murder.
Yeah, I like how they're calling them assailants, assassins.
Oh yeah, they're using words like that. We don't get to ghouls yet. And then they also mentioned that there's like some kind of like some people from NASA are being brought into the White House to talk about shit.
Yeah.
And actually, there was more attention to that than I remembered there being in this movie. There's a lot more going on with the sci-fi stuff than I had remembered. And honestly, I wish there was less.
Really?
I would kind of like because there's no explanation at the start of the movie. Eventually we get exposition. We don't get that much in explanation. We eventually get a little bit of explanation. And it's a very like space race type explanation, so it kind of dates the movie a bit. But it's also like, I don't think we need that. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been anything. It could have also, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Romero could have come up with any idea, but for some reason, you're right, it is like this space race centric explanation. I thought it was kind of neat, but I do get your point. Yeah, like it didn't really need to be there.
So eventually we meet some more characters who are hiding out in the cellar. We got Mr. Cooper, who's the bald guy. I mean, he looks like a Cooper to me.
He does, yeah.
He's one of the most frustrating characters in the history of film, and he's all the more frustrating because he's 100% right in a lot of ways. And then he's got his. You think they're friends, but really, I think they just like ran into each other and met when they're all running from the walkers. And that's this guy Tom, who gives a real Burt Ward as Robin vibe. I think maybe because he's a lot shorter than everybody else. He's just, I don't know. Reminded of Burt Ward. So you got these two. They're hiding in the cellar. And Ben's like, why didn't you come help us? And they're like, oh, they switch back and forth between, oh, it was so loud, we heard all the screaming, we thought maybe the zombies were already here and killing people and we would just get killed if we came up. And then they're also like, oh no, we couldn't hear anything down there.
Yeah, Ben's just calling them out left and right.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, Ben is, I love Ben's savagery, if you will. Like he tells it like it is. He doesn't give two fucks. He's great. And we haven't obviously pointed out, but like Dwayne Jones, the actor playing Ben, is African American. This is significant. I mean, granted, the movie looks older than it actually is because it's black and white and it's not shot on great quality film. And since this is public domain, like I think a lot of the versions you see of it aren't very good. Like I have this on DVD from one of those like 50 movie packs and it looks terrible. But like, so the first time I ever saw the movie, I saw it on that and I'm like, this looks like a movie from like the 30s. And like, no, I've seen it on Prime. I've seen it on Shudder since then. It looks better than that. But it looks strange seeing that because we're not used to seeing that in a black and white movie, this black guy bossing around these white guys. And I think supposedly Romero, he claims he cast Dwayne Jones because he was just the best actor for the part, which might be true. Like I said, I think he's the best actor in this movie. But there also, a lot of people have speculated, obviously, that there is some kind of meaning to him being black, and certainly makes the ending feel differently.
Yeah, I wish I had never heard of these rumors kicking around about it. If Romero says he cast him because he was the best actor to play that role, then I will believe him.
I've also seen people that knew Romero was saying like, he was just saying that so that like he wasn't getting all this praise for helping out a black. So who knows? I don't know. But it is like I've seen movies that are older than this, obviously, that have black people, even have black people in leading roles. But all of those movies, like all the Sidney Poitier movies, those are all like about race. Those are about black people and white people clashing, the To Kill a Mockingbird type movies. This movie, at least on its surface, isn't about that. And I think that's significant that this is, whether or not it truly was, this is kind of the first, if you will, colorblind casting, because this is the thing that people have talked about, or used to talk about this with like Will Smith back in the day when Will Smith was like the biggest movie star in the world. I heard people talk about like Will Smith was the first black superstar to truly be like cast in a colorblind way, where like this one role could have been for a white person or a black person. They gave it to Will Smith. You look at it and you think like that can't be true, but then you're like thinking of the other big act. It's like, okay, a lot of Denzel movies, he's very specifically playing a black person, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, maybe that's true, which is crazy to think about that. But yeah, I don't know, you know, what to make of it. I don't know if Romero, when he says that, if he's being genuine or if he's really just not trying to hog all the attention for this good deed that he did, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify when I said earlier, I don't remember my exact phrasing, but I said, you know, it kind of ruined the end of the movie for me. The whole question.
You mean like it spoiled it, probably, right?
No. I ruined it as in where I was more thinking about how one is supposed to read this and how...
okay.
Stuff like that, other than just thinking about the humanity and the... problems with people, I guess, in an epidemic like this, rather than that ending, which, you know, again, is that what Romero meant by the end of it, or, you know, did he mean the whole race question?
Well, we can talk about that certainly when we get to the ending, but I'm pointing this out because, like, even in these intense arguments we have with Cooper and with Ben, you can maybe say it's subtext, but there's never like any effort from Cooper, who's a genuine asshole. Like,
yeah,
you know, if you write a character like this in a movie, he's going to be a racist like that. Because I mean,
yeah,
but he never says anything about Ben, and so it definitely seems like it was written to just be a person. You know, it didn't matter what race he was when writing.
Yeah,
but,
I mean...
you know, maybe later on somewhere during production, it's like, no, it actually means something more if we have a black guy in this role. Maybe Dwayne Jones was the best actor, because he is good. I also think the dude playing Cooper is pretty good. He plays a great asshole.
He does.
He is genuinely one of the, like, you want to punch him in the face. And eventually he does get punched in the face several times. And it's wonderful. Yeah. He does not get punched in the face visually, it doesn't look like he's punched as hard as Barbara is, though, so that's a little weird. Barbara gets smacked.
Yeah, after she smacks Ben. She gives him a good smacking for not letting her out to go save her brother.
Yeah, but, I mean, he's
then he clocks her.
Well, I think he slaps her and then goes closed fist and knocks her to the ground, yeah. And she faints or is knocked out or something, or just gives up and falls asleep. I don't know.
Gives up and falls asleep is a good,
Barbara treated
way to say
like shit
out.
Both by the script and by the other characters, honestly. Well, Judy's nice to her. No, Helen's nice to her. Helen's the really nice one.
Helen is so cool.
Yeah, like these are the other characters. We've got Judy, who I guess is dating Tom, or maybe they're married, and then we got Helen Cooper, who's Cooper's wife, obviously, and is not nearly the miserable prick that he is. She seems just fine. Normal person, is genuinely like, she feels bad when she hears that Barbara lost her brother. And then, of course, the Coopers also have one kid downstairs who's sick. So all the debates going on here, it's basically just a giant argument about where's the better place to stay. Do we stay upstairs where we can see the zombies through the windows, but also if something happens, we can potentially get out and, you know, go somewhere. We also have the television and the radio up here. Or do we stay downstairs where we're better barricaded, there's only one entrance in, but we're kind of screwed every other way. And what I love about this, what I love about movies that do something like this, is that both sides make so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, there is a very strong argument for either case, especially when you get that added, you know, Ben is like defending the upstairs and he's like, I'm not letting you take the TV or the radio down. I'm fighting for those up here. Once you get, because you think if you get TV and radio downstairs, maybe that tips the scale. Maybe. Yeah. Probably not, because you still can't really get out. But at any rate, I mean, this is a 50-50 thing. And I'm with Ben because I like Ben because he's not a prick.
Yeah.
But I can understand where Cooper's coming from. Cooper's problem is that he genuinely seems to not care at all. I mean, bad first impression, right? When you hear the woman screaming and just don't go up to see if anything's wrong.
He's also a tough character because he is such an asshole, but he's also a father.
He is a father. Yeah, that's the point too, is that the daughter's sick. So, like, it makes sense. They can't really, even if they hear on the news that they're supposed to go somewhere, like, they really take her anywhere. Maybe not. I don't know. So there is an added thing there.
And there's also a great line, too. Cooper says, we should go down to the cellar, because these flimsy boards aren't going to hold them back. They flipped my car. We just barely got out of there.
Yeah.
And Ben says, what are you talking about? I just ran outside and killed 2 of them. I beat them to death with a rock, Mm-hmm. And he's right about that, too, It's just really neat. It's just like a really neat argument that they're having. It's really cool.
Absolutely. And this is the heart of the movie. I mean, most of the rest of the movie is this debate one way or the other. And then it's like more like the only reason ultimately that Cooper doesn't stay in the cellar is because his wife wants to go up there and because they have the television and the radio. So they kind of just trade off who's got daughter watching duties there. And, they get Judy to help out. Yeah, then they decide because, they see in the television, we get more exposition from the TV. This is when we get the ghouls. This is when we learn that they're actually, these are previously dead people that are getting up and that are eating other people. Every single, dead body we have has bite marks all over it. All that stuff. We get our, all the needed exposition to know exactly what the hell these zombies things are. And then we also got the, is radiation from some satellite thing that came back. And I could take or leave that, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The dude on the TV is like, okay, we originally told you to barricade yourselves somewhere. Now we're actually telling you to go to these various rescue stations. And so everyone's like, okay, we need to go. And it's like, but we don't really have gas. But then they find the key for the gas pump and they're ready to go. There's also more from the television. We meet this, I used the word militia earlier, posse. I think posse is probably the better word.
Well,
because
it's like the sheriff.
Refer to the guy
right?
as the sheriff, yeah. So, yeah. But I mean, he has no one's in uniform. It has the look of you crazy kind of right wing militia kind of thing. I mean, whether or not it's meant to look like that. That itself kind of carries some meaning to it. Is that these guys are just going around. And this is he says that I actually really like the actor that plays this sheriff guy. For all I know, this is the only movie he's ever in. He doesn't seem like he's a real actor, but he's just, I don't know, he's just good. And when he's talking about, here's how you take him out. You shoot him in the head, or you burn him, or, severe trauma to, bash him in the head enough. And it's just, I like his line delivery. It's very natural. It doesn't feel like he doesn't seem like an actor. He seems like just a person.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
There's also a line, and again, this is another one of those things where I think I heard someone talking about this, but I may have just imagined it. But his line delivery when they ask him, I think someone screwed up a line, and I'm not sure if he screwed it up or if the guy on the news screwed it up. But he says something. The news guy asks him so are they all slow moving? Or something along those lines. And then his response is a weird answer to that question. He's just yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up. He kind of has that hesitation. And I'm not sure if it's he forgot his line and just kind of improvised and it felt natural enough, or if I have a feeling the person asking the question asked the wrong question. I think that person screwed up their line. I think his answer was supposed to be and were all these people dead or something? And so I think that, but something about that feels very real to me, that this is just live on television news, when you're just talking to a guy. I don't know. I really like that scene.
That's what this movie did really well too, all the television news stuff.
So the game plan is for Ben and Tom to go out and get gas. And then also for Cooper to throw Molotov cocktails to kind of give them some room. Judy ends up running out there to join Tom, ill-advisedly. And then it's a combination. I like this too, that they screw up horribly in the car. The truck ends up blowing up. But it's also it's not one person's fault,
Yeah.
I'm assigning zero blame to Judy in this case, because she doesn't do anything wrong. She just gets in the truck. I'm going to say I think it's more Ben's fault than Tom's. Ben's the one who puts the torch on the ground when they're trying to get gas into a vehicle. I think it's Ben's fault.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Well, he also shoots the pump, which can't be a good thing to do. Because the key ended up not working, so he has to like shoot it open. I'm like, that's probably not good.
Yeah, well, you know when you pull up to a gas station, they have the signs. It's like no smoking, no shooting, no lighting
no
matches.
shooting.
Yeah.
No setting torches on the ground, please.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I did like how that scene played out. It was just kind of like a bunch of errors or a bunch of lapses in judgment came together to.
Yeah. And but it's also, it's lapses in judgment, but honestly, I feel bad kind of saying that because these people are freaking desperate. Like, what the hell are they going to do if they don't do this? So anyways, truck blows up because Tom spills gas when he's trying to get gas into the truck, and also because he spills gas onto the torch that Ben had set down. Ben set down the torch so he could more accurately aim his gun at the oncoming zombies. So I mean, it's like all of this stuff is like kind of understandable. You wish you had a better spot to put the torch, but he also needed to have it like in grabbing range, like he needed to be able to get to it quickly.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've explained this already, but zombies are afraid of fire.
Yeah, everybody's afraid of fire. We don't need to explain
Frankenstein.
That.
Not the Invisible Man.
Frankenstein's kind of a zombie. Sort of. Or what about Evil Dead? Are those guys zombies?
Oh, man. I'd say sure.
I'm going to say they are. Technically, they're possessed by demons. They're Kandarian demons. But they act the same. I mean, they don't act the same as zombies. But if a person gets killed by them, they come back. You know, that's zombie. That's a zombie. That's also vampires, but whatever.
By the way, I'd also call Frankenstein a zombie, too.
Is Frankenstein an Easter movie?
What is... yes. Yes. Can every church... and every major news network show Frankenstein at Easter?
Yeah, you know, not just... I mean, people don't even show it around Halloween. I mean, TCM's like the only network that would dare air an old movie like that. So, yeah, we need it at Easter, too. You folks, Ben Mankiewicz, or whoever... I mean, I'm sure Ben Mankiewicz doesn't pick the programming for Turner Classic Movies, but please show Frankenstein and Reanimator both at Easter. Would TCM ever show Reanimator? Probably not. They showed Final Exam, though. If you show Final Exam, you better show Reanimator. I don't know what the hell Final Exam is doing on that network. So Ben runs back to the house, pursued, slowly, of course, by the zombies, but he's locked out. That's because that frickin' prick Cooper was, like, giving up on him. But Ben is able to get in right as Cooper's about to go down to the cellar. And Cooper reluctantly helps him kind of board up the house again. Mm-hmm. And then Ben starts beating the shit out of Cooper.
Oh, it's great.
And he has that great line, I ought to drag you out there and feed you to those things. And it's like, in this case, 100%, yeah. Cooper gave up it was way too premature to give up. Especially because it's like, it's one thing if you see the car blow up and you're like, oh, everyone was in there. He could see that Ben wasn't in there. I think Ben's holding a frickin' torch. Like, he's well lit, you know?
Yeah, and you know, too, the part I like about this scene the most is that, I mean, sure, Ben beats the shit out of him, but that's it. You know, he doesn't drag him outside like you said, I should.
Oh, yeah, Ben's not that. I mean, if it were reversed, Cooper would probably do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, eventually, everyone, I guess, comes back upstairs, because So at this point, zombies are starting to use tools. They're picking up rocks. They're picking up, pieces of wood from the chair that Ben burnt, and they're trying to get in through the windows. And so everyone's got their hands full. Cooper grabs the gun from Ben, or tries to. Ben takes it back and shoots him. Cooper was trying to get his wife down to the cellar and just to leave everyone else there, who everyone else at this point is just Ben and Barbara. Yes, Barbara's still there. We haven't mentioned her in a half hour. So Ben shoots Cooper. Cooper kind of stumbles his ass downstairs. His wife, Helen, has been grabbed by the zombies. She eventually gets free, but she is grabbed. She's kind of held here. I think Barbara actually helps her get out.
Yes.
Probably by accident, though, because Barbara's useless. As Helen goes downstairs, she sees that her husband is being eaten by her child. Because the sick kid all along was, she was turning Z. She was turning Zed. And then in probably the most iconic scene of the movie, also one of the strangest scenes. Because I mentioned, okay, we see zombies using tools. We generally don't see zombies using tools as efficiently for specific murder purposes as they do here. Or as this one girl does here. Yeah. Because she picks up, what is it? Is that a garden hoe?
A trowel, I think.
Okay, it's a garden something, a trowel. And she goes full, like, Norman Bates on her mom, which is it's fantastic. It's great. It's really creepy. The sound design for it, it's like half scream. It's almost like musical too in a way, because
it's almost like they've taken separate tracks of her screaming, then like have layered it on top of each other, and then with like weird musical stings.
Yeah, I think that's probably exactly what they did. But yeah, it's really unsettling and fantastic editing. It's a lot of neat shots of the shadow of the girl stabbing. And it's great stuff. And it's, like I said, might be the most famous scene in the movie, which is kind of weird because this is a movie about zombies eating people, not children stabbing
garden
people.
implements.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, but it all works. It's great. Barbara, as she's helping Ben fight off these zombies, she sees Johnny. Johnny shows up, and at this point, Barbara loses it. I mean, this is the 5th time she's lost it, but
it's all gone, baby. It's all gone.
I guess she gets eaten by her brother. She gets pulled away. And, I guess that's kind of fitting.
Poetic,
shut up about her brother, except when she did shut up for 45 minutes. And there's something poetic about they're coming to get you, Barbara, being him, I guess? I don't know. All I know is that is the one zombie to kind of smile, because that actor is... I think someone forgot to tell that actor that he was a zombie. The Johnny guy, he just kind of shows up. He's got this, like, smirk on his face. Like, come on, you're a freaking... You don't enjoy things. You just do them. You're a zombie.
Before we get to the very end, we forgot to mention the shot of all the zombies eating Tom and... what was her name?
Judy.
After the truck explodes, the zombies ravage the truck.
Yes, and this is another very famous scene, of course. And it's set to like weird pulsating music.
Yeah,
I think is really effective. I think it's great. I think it's perfect for this scene. It's, again, incredibly graphic for 1968 anyways. Incredibly graphic for black and white. And you get to see some zombies fumbling around their intestines, chewing on some bones. By today's standards, it's tame.
You are totally right about that pulsating music. When I said I don't like it, I mean, it made me uncomfortable with the scene, yeah.
It is creepy stuff. I remember, like, I don't think it was the first time I saw this movie. I think it was, like, the second time I saw this movie. This scene just, like, got under my skin, and I think a big part of that was that weird music. I'm sure it's just bad quality music, but it almost sounds like they, like, slowed it down to the point where, like, the quality was, like, breaking apart.
Yeah.
And I'm probably giving it too much credit. It probably just is poorly put together music in a way, because this is a really cheap movie, guys. In fact, I'm not even sure. I think something like that almost certainly is, but for a long time I wasn't even sure. Like, is there even a score to this movie, or is this just like music that they found?
Yeah, that's
because you watch that opening scene in the opening credits, that music comes up. That's music that sounds like it's out of like an early 50s horror movie, or like a late 40s, like, B movie to Mighty Joe Young, the A movie or something. I mean, it's just like sounds old. It doesn't really fit the movie that we're watching, which that's kind of fun actually. But yeah, it just feels weird. But something like that feels so specific. The music during this zombie feast scene feels so specific. I'm like, that had to have been done for this movie. Mostly just because I can't imagine a psychopath composing that not for this movie. Like, I don't know who would do that,
Yeah. I love this scene, but the only thing that makes the scene kind of falter for me in its effectiveness is when all the zombies do kind of, raid the truck and start tearing apart the burnt corpses. Then you see like a bunch of zombies sit around like in a circle together eating, and it honestly reminds me of like family picnics. I just thought
so kumbaya kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean,
because we got the campfire going, kind of, because half the place is on fire.
Yeah, it's very peaceful. I think you called it cute earlier. You're like, it's a cute little scene. And...
Oh yeah, it's adorable because I mean, they're just the actors just having a good time chewing on some like dog bones or
I didn't. And the like
intestines are, I don't know what the intestines are, but I know intestines are like a pretty easy thing to fake special effects wise, and I'm sure all the more easy when you're doing black and white and nobody's gonna be able to tell anyways,
Yeah, I hated how they cut to that zombie playing with the intestines like twice, and I was like, ugh, that's so gross. Get out of here. Also, there was a naked zombie in that scene. Did you catch that?
Yeah, if you look at the poster. This movie's in the public domain. There's probably more than one poster, but like the poster I'm familiar with, one of the zombies is butt-ass naked. And I remember thinking, like, well, where is that in the movie? But then, a few months ago when I saw this movie, I'm like, oh, there's a naked zombie. Oh, there it is,
Moon in the camera.
So, with Ben being the only person left in the house, Barbara having been taken. Well, first of all, the kid comes up from stabbing her mother and eating her father, and I can't even really say attacks. She kind of just gets in the way, and he shoves her away. And then he ends up going downstairs, and he barricades himself in the cellar where Mr. Cooper wanted to be all along, where he ends up surviving the night. Is that kind of that ironic thing where it's like, honestly, you can say like, oh, Cooper was right, they survived, but also, would Ben have been right if Cooper would have cooperated a little bit more? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They might have still, or if the car didn't blow up, I'm sure they would have been in great shape.
Yeah.
So it's like how things played out. Like, oh, you can say, yeah, Cooper was right, but at the same time, it's like, Ben could have easily been right. We just needed a little bit better teamwork.
Yeah.
And we just needed to park a little bit closer to the frickin' gas pump so we didn't spill gas everywhere. That's really the biggest problem. I guess I blamed Ben earlier for putting the torch on the ground, but no. You gotta get close to that thing.
Oh.
So the next day, that armed militia is storming the Capitol. I mean, walking around the field.
Yeah.
And they're shooting zombies left and right. And Ben hears, all this gunfire, and he decides to get up, and then he gets shot in the head. It's a brilliant shot from some guy that looks like a mix between Dick Miller and Kirk Douglas.
Lee Harvey Oswald. Oh.
Ben gets shot in the head. I mean, they think he's a zombie, but again, what you were kind of talking about earlier, the whole, like, him being black kind of changes this moment for the movie. I mean, I think even were there not a racial, possibly allegorical message to this ending, this ending is freaking heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, you're with Ben all night. He survives all this shit. He survives all of these people who are not helping him or downright sabotaging him in the case of Cooper. And he finally gets it. And you're like, oh, he's finally going to catch a break. And then nope. It's devastating.
The hardest part to watch is after he's dead and the credits start rolling, they have all those stills.
All those stills, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big
and especially the parts with the meat hooks in them and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're dragging his body out onto the pyre.
And that specifically,
awful.
I think, is where the a lot of the discussion of this scene, of this movie, really, not just the scene, being this kind of racial message comes in, because those images we're seeing, they do look like, the type of stuff you would have seen to do with lynchings and stuff way back when,
Yeah.
I mean, it's disturbing, again, no matter what race anybody in them is, but it's like, with this, it's like, oh, this feels very real. And this would have felt very, very real in 1968. And it feels real enough now,
Mm-hmm. The other issue there is, throughout the whole movie, that whole race card wasn't even brought up, the whole...
Right, that Cooper never said anything.
Yeah, Cooper never said anything, and it was never about Ben being black and Cooper being white. It was just about a shitty person.
No, you say, but again, this is just subtext, though. Because
you're right.
Maybe Cooper, the reason Cooper's being, I mean, yeah, he wants to stay in the cellar, but like Tom starts being like, hey, maybe upstairs is the way to go. But like Cooper is just so friggin' stubborn. Like, is there this not wanting to take orders from this black dude? Is that part of it? I mean, maybe it could be. I mean, I don't think it has to be vocalized necessarily. Like, you can still read that into this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I just, it's not even that I find a hard time. I don't. I can see what everybody else is seeing when they bring in this racial aspect to it. And I mean, it's kind of hard to pass over, especially because you do have this lead actor who happens to be black. And again, Romero could have actually cast him that way for that purpose. But then you also have kind of throwaway lines where Cooper goes down to talk to his wife after Tom stays upstairs and stuff. And Cooper's wife goes, oh, look at you, all upset that you're not the king of your castle. You just can't handle being second in command or something like that. You could bring it back to the race thing. Or
listen, we've had centuries of people doing that very thing with Othello for the exact same scenario. This one guy taking orders from Othello,
Yeah.
So if it's fair for Othello, it's fair here.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm not saying that the discussion shouldn't exist. It's just that I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying now. I don't know. It's just interesting. The whole discussion around it is interesting.
And I mean, the most effective way to tell an allegorical message, at least to me anyways, is to have it not hit you over the head. And it shows a subtlety or a skill in the filmmaking that, maybe it's by happenstance, but like something worked about this movie. Maybe by accident. A lot of cheap-ass independent horror movies that are as significant as Night of the Living Dead or like Halloween or something, a lot of the stuff that ends up working about them is probably, there's a lot of luck or a lot of happy accidents kind of thing. I mean, Blair Witch Project probably maybe the best example other than this movie, or like Saw.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Again, going back to every zombie story is the same story. This seems to be just the best possible version of that story. If race is a part of the story or not, I think this movie just has a way of... I really do feel like this movie understands human psychology better than any movie. You've seen other movies about, like, humanity sucks or is doomed or something.
Mm-hmm.
The doom that humanity, in this case, obviously just the microcosm of this group of people, the doom that they bring upon themselves is, like, so... understandable. And again, going back to the great debate between upstairs, downstairs, both sides make so much sense. And then even that, like, when we see which side worked, that like, oh, maybe the other side would have worked if they did this thing differently. I just think it's so compelling, and it's so, like, Cooper, for being the prick that he is, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Ben makes a lot of sense, still manages to be a prick here or there. Tom is kind of just along for the ride. Barbara sucks, unfortunately. Okay, I'll give you Barbara. Not the most compelling character psychologically, but it's really just... it's mainly Cooper and Ben, I guess. Tiny little bit of Tom and a little bit of Helen. I'll give Helen some credit.
That Cooper and Ben interplay, I don't know if I could use that term, that interplay between Cooper and Ben, it really reaches that peak when Cooper takes the gun from Ben. But even earlier, when Cooper had said to his wife, at one point when Ben had left the room, he goes, "I gotta get that gun, honey." And you're like, uh-oh. Mm-hmm. And you honestly can't help but feel that racial tension. And going back to what we were saying...
And when he locks him out, too.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. When he locks him out, and you're like, is he doing it because he's a black guy, or is he doing it because he just wants to be in charge? Either way, he's a dick, but...
Or is he doing... No. I mean, there's still a chance that, like... No, I mean, there's three options. There's a black dude, or just wants to be in charge, or there's also, if I let him in... there's no way we hold this place down. Like, there's zombies are coming. Mm-hmm. Like, there is still the defending your family kind of thing, too.
I also thought it was interesting how, what's his name? Dwayne Jones?
Yeah.
How he's, I think, the only black person in the movie. Like, there's no black zombies, I don't think.
No, I guess you're right. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that.
Whether or not the whole race thing was intentional, I think at least some of it had to have been intentional. Like, there's no way it wasn't, especially in 1968, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think they're... Personally, where I fall on this, I don't think Romero's telling the truth when he says, like, no, I didn't try to want to tell it. Because the storytelling itself is, the story, the plot, the script is open to allegory that, to me, it doesn't seem like it's coincidental that a black man is the lead character here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
But you know what, though? Romero does have a point where he is the best actor in the movie. He's definitely the best actor in the movie.
No, he's great. Only made one or two other movies, I think. I think he was like a drama teacher or like I think he taught drama or maybe taught acting in some way for like most of his life.
No, it really is a fantastic movie. I've only seen this a handful of times, and as you and I'm sure the audience knows at this point, I haven't seen a lot of movies that we've done for this podcast. This is one of the ones I have. But you saw both of
these before.
I have, yes. I know. This might be like the second or third time in the history of this podcast so far that I've...
All right.
But no, I love it. First time I saw it, I was terrified when I was a kid. Second time I saw it, I was probably in my late teens, and that's when I picked up on the racial drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a whole new love and interest for this movie, and watching it again, it's just great. It's great to pick apart and talk and think about it and stuff.
So, which of these two movies do you prefer?
Definitely Night of the Living Dead. Now, don't get me wrong. I did say that I did like Final Destination, and my feelings on it have been changed a bit, and I still like it, and it is still entertaining, and parts of it are enjoyable, but this is just a fantastic movie. Night of the Living Dead, that is. So how about you?
Yeah, this is an easy one. Night of the Living Dead, one of the greatest movies of all time. Final Destination is... trashy teen horror from an era where horror was kind of lame, if you ask me, although I mean it's trashy fun. Like, there's value in Final Destination, but it's not Night of the Living Dead. So, how do you think this stacks up as a drive-in double feature?
Can you guess what I'm going to say, Patrick?
No.
I actually enjoyed it. I thought it worked fine as a double feature. You have this one movie that's insanely goofy and ridiculous and over the top and funny in scenes, like hilarious when Miss Luton gets killed. And then you have this heavy, solid movie that is making you tackle the questions of the issues that humanity is facing, how humanity would deal with a crisis like this, and the whole tension between the races and stuff, and all that unspoken conflict there.
I don't think this is a good double feature. And the main reason I think Night of the Living Dead is so freaking bleak. I hate ending the night on that. And I'm thinking of if we reverse this and we started with Night of the Living Dead and then finished with Final Destination. Okay, we go from like the bleakest ending in the history of movies to, okay, plane explosion in like the opening scene. Like, I don't know. There's like no... There's like someone is feeling miserable at some, but I do think in contextually for the double feature, I think Night of the Living Dead is probably better as the first movie, and I think it's best followed up with something goofy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know. I'm just like, look at the two endings though.
Well, both endings are bleak. You know?
I mean, no, they're not. Final Destination's like, okay, it's bleak in the sense that, oh, you can't escape your fate, except nothing else about the movie's bleak. It's like a cartoon.
Yeah.
It's a Universal Studios ride at the end. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if I can really explain it much better than that, but these movies, I want my bleakness to be complemented by something certainly more colorful and less bleak, but I don't know. Final Destination doesn't do it for me. And that I'm also obviously talking about this, assuming the order of the two movies was reversed, which already not what we did. So I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't work for me.
So Patrick, what are we up to next week?
Well, not you in this case, because we have special guests. But we are doing Grizzly, a personal favorite bad movie of mine from 1976, and Vice Academy, the original 1989 USA Up All Night film made for TV/feature. I really am not 100% sure what it is, but that one is available on Tubi. Well, you have plenty of excuses not to check it out, but if you want to listen to it, you might as well check it out. And so join us next week for Grizzly and Vice Academy. And until then, thank you for listening to us. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. I'll see you 2 weeks from now, maybe.
Maybe.